So good morning and welcome to everybody still joining us. We hope that you're having a good Tuesday morning so far. As you know, today's session will be a bit more informal than our previous two, and sort of here to guide us through some Canva demoing and to take a look at some of the materials that you're working on or hoping to work on is Ray Myers. So if you've joined us for our communications webinar series, they were our presenter for those two. If you haven't had a chance to check in on those, we do have that content available on our YouTube channel, and the links have been shared via our listservs, including the FCASV listserv for advocates. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly and I can send those your way if you haven't received them. We are recording at least parts of this session, and so specifically the Canva demoing and some of the information shared about improving design and representation for our communities across the state. While we're centering rural communities because this is a rural project offering, we will also talk more broadly about design. I'm available on the chat, so if you want to direct message me about anything, if you have a question or are shy, don't want to, there are no bad questions. We're kind of coming in vulnerably. I've shared a couple of my designs, a couple of the designs from colleagues of mine, and so it does take a lot of vulnerability to share work that you've created. I tried my best to try to find some, and I couldn't get into some of my older folders from back when I was an advocate, but they were pretty bad. We were limited to clip art back then. So my word-based flyers were based on Publisher or Word and lots of clip art. And so we're working with way more enhanced tools now, which is a real blessing. And we hope that you can take away some things regarding how to improve some of those materials for readability, for ADA compliance. And so it's important, some of the stuff that we talk about, it's not just about the way it looks, but whether it's readable to an individual who has disability, a seeing disability, or even a developmental or a sensory disability. And so just know that when we're reviewing, like on the contract side or on the programmatic side, when we're reviewing a lot of these materials, we're not just reviewing them for how they look, right? We're also reviewing them because we know that our funders are going to be looking at other things, such as whether they meet certain ADA compliant standards. All right, Ray, I'm going to hand it over so you can take it away.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see y'all again for some more comms and design basics. First thing I want to do is I want to reiterate one of the things that Eva said around like the vulnerability here. I've been doing this for about 2 decades, if not longer, depending on when you decide, like when I would say that I like went more professional. And this stuff just comes over time. It's like riding a bike or doing anything else. Y'all are advocates and do your work and probably would run circles around me. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to give y'all some tips, some ideas that'll help you like improve the communications work you're doing, improve the materials and the graphics that you're making in like small but real ways. In the next hour, in the next 2-hour sessions today, I'm gonna probably drop like lots of tips, lots of advice, lots of like rules of design. And it might feel a little bit overwhelming, and that's okay if you pick up just a handful here or there. That's going to do a lot to really improve you know, the stuff that you're putting out there, and make your work easier, because, you know, you're going to have kind of a framework to work within. So I'm going to begin with, first off, like Eva said, we're going to be working a lot in Canva today, because Canva is accessible, it's web-based, it's relatively easy to use, and it's actually free for most nonprofits. And I'm actually going to start with that real quick. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I'm going to share. Okay, I'm going to share my whole screen so I can hop in and out of the browser if necessary. So the first thing I wanted to show you, straight up Google search. If you Google if you all don't have access to Canva Pro yet, you can go in here, and if you just Google Canva for nonprofits, this comes up as the very first link, and this takes you to a page. This page gives you, you know, some marketing about like why you would want to use Canva, what it's for, and then there is an apply link in a few places. That doesn't work for me because I already have an account, but if you would click this apply, it would take you to a form, and the form asks you some basic information about your nonprofit. This is applicable to not just formal non-501c3 nonprofits, but also advocacy groups and even informal like mutual aid groups that don't like even exist formally as organizations. You do have to provide some mission documents, but I was able to get an organization that doesn't actually exist like legally in any way. It's just a group of people working together. I was able to get us a Canva account just by loading up like a PDF of like a mission statement. You know, this right here tells you a little bit about what Canva offers, like Canva Pro, tons of templates, tons of images, tons of graphic elements, lots and lots of really nice fonts, a lot of things to do to create your graphics. And if you have the Pro version, you can actually set up color schemes, fonts, and logos for your organization to make things easier. I lost the chat when I shared my screen. So I just wanted to show you all that real quick, since I was thinking about it. So to do a quick level set, now that everybody's here, I'd love for y'all to share in the chat why you're here today, and what some of your biggest challenges around graphic design are, graphic design and communications are. Like, what are the things you struggle with, or you would like me to cover? If you have actual like design projects or anything like that you want to review, you can also let me know now so that I can figure out how I want to structure and move around things. But this is a workshop, so I can either just show you tips and tricks for an hour, or we can look at some of your like projects or designs that you're working on, and you can ask me specific advice or feedback or things like that. So if y'all want to share in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. And while you do that, I'm going to show you, I'm going to move over, and this is what Canva looks like. If you've never been in there, this is when you log in on your main page. It gives you lots of suggestions of like, you know, computer-based selections of like, hey, what do you want to make? Do you want to do a Facebook cover, a flyer, an Instagram story? Like, tell me what you want. Over time, it will customize some of this based on what you use most frequently. I don't know why it keeps offering me whiteboards. I've never made a whiteboard, but it's like, you really need to make a whiteboard. I'm like, I won't make a whiteboard. I'm not even sure what that is. But it's there. Canva is also expanding. They just had like their annual conference, and they have split things up to try to make it more of like an overall suite, and they've split out things like videos, printing, and like even started doing like rolled out website development tools. We're going to stick mostly with social media graphics and flyers today. But the video stuff is something worth like playing around with, and something I expect probably over the next 6 months to a year and ongoing to get more and more sophisticated now that they've kind of split out all of these separate platforms. So with that, let me check the chat. Let's see. So Ant says, I struggle most with building an editorial calendar and balancing those priorities with on-the-ground work. Yeah, this is something, Eva says, this is something I wish I had an advocate to enhance my outreach and awareness efforts. Oh my God, same about the whiteboards. This is amazing. I look forward to using it in the future, says Diane. Yeah, that's part of like what I'm hoping to do here today is teach you to share like some tricks and some shortcuts that minimize like the amount of time you're spending doing this work. If you've been on some of these other presentations I've done, oh, Deanna, not Diane, my bad. Thanks, Eva. What was I saying? If I like I said on some of the other webinars, I've done a lot of work where I've supported advocates or organizers whose primary job is outreach to either volunteers or clients who have also had to do some degree of their own design and communications work. And I've been there to support them. Sometimes that means creating like really like higher end graphics, but like sometimes they may have like 4 or 5 events in a month and I just don't have the capacity. So they're left to kind of do some of their own design. And a lot of them really enjoy doing it. However, like sometimes they either enjoy it or sometimes they struggle with it, where they're trying to get something perfect or something really involved, and they end up spending like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours on like a flyer. And at that point, I'm like, you got other stuff to do. You got to pump this out and then move on to the next thing. One of the really great ways to do that is with templates. And Canva has a ton of pre-designed templates in it. And then also you can use old designs as templates. So I'm actually going to show you, which one is this? I'm going to show you a design Eva shared. So this one right here is a basic social media graphic. It was for a webinar based on a comic book that they had written as a educational tool that they put together. And what's cool about this is they actually used a pre-existing template. So if you go back here, so their logic was, I need something comic book themed. So they went to Canva and like they said, I want to search for search themes, and they searched, comic book, some degree. I'm searching comic book day because I specifically don't know it'll come up, but you can search themes like comic books, and as you can see, there's all of these pre-existing comic templates. Some of them are better quality than others, and they're in all kinds of different formats and things like that. You could also do, like you could do something like superhero and it's going to come up with slightly different results. But they found, yes, and Eva just shared the comic book that was also designed in Canva. Though you had a comic book artist do the panels, and then did they do the text too, or did you do the text in Canva after the fact?
No, I had to. Are you talking about like the text bubbles or?
Yeah, like they did the lettering on.
Yeah, they
what?
did. Yeah, they did the lettering on the actual comic book. They didn't do the front or back covers or any of the additional materials.
Yeah.
So this the image quality, you can tell it's not great. It turned out okay for print, but it is based on like screenshots basically of some of the original art. And it was because we were working with a nonprofit budget, right? So like the 3 stories down to a few pages each was the best that we could do, and he was awesome to work with. So everything else basically I did on Canva.
Cool. Yeah, and this was really clever and a great way of, I see how you like did things like, so you had somebody do these pages, so these came to you pretty much complete as images, and you embedded them in, but then you created these other pages. This is all your work in Canva. And I like how you took the individual images. So this is this is this panel here. So you took it and you cropped it out and you put it up here to kind of create that page. And I really like this. It's really clean. As you can see, like looking at like positive design elements, like you have consistent headers throughout the whole thing. You have consistent fonts. You're following a set theme that makes sense. You added a back cover, front cover. You kept with a consistent color scheme. And I think, like you pointed out, like the only thing noticeable off the top is like that this is, because you took that panel and made it so much bigger, it pixelated a little bit. But I've seen the printed version and it looks solid. So I think that it's a really minor thing. But you've got your fonts are set, you've got your color scheme, the front layout looks like a comic book, like you really nailed it there. And then on this, so was this the webinar to go over the comic book and tell people how to use it as a tool? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Do you want to, you were explaining earlier, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you want to talk about some of the things in this graphic that you would have liked to have been better?
Yeah, if I had more time, and I wasn't as worried about like the actual webinar, because like for me, like and somebody was mentioning like time management, right? And so I really couldn't spend loads of time on this. Like I had to both put a PowerPoint together for my presentation. I had to schedule it. So we do all of that by ourselves, and advocates kind of deal with the same thing, right? Like you're like a 1-person team sometimes. And so I was like, it's gonna have to do, but I was a little worried about the image on the right. I think that I didn't want it to seem like comic books are, specifically for one type of population or anything like that. But I just needed an image, and the fact that it was a person who at least was faceless and didn't have a skin color. Like I was like, okay, that's the best I can do right now. And then just kind of change some of the coloring to make it consistent with the rest of the theme. But yeah, I was a little concerned about it not feeling inclusive. And I know, and on the other hand, I know that comic books are generally, for a long time, right? They were kind of very gendered. And so I at least like that it showed that that folks who are gendered femme, are also into comic books. So I like that aspect of it, particularly because we're talking about gender violence. And so I think showing a little bit of that, like playing with that a little bit, I think worked. But I didn't think that it was necessarily representative of the comic book itself, or the types of stories or characters that we were depicting with our comic book. And I thought that the comic book would speak for itself in that respect, since we were focusing it on rural communities, and it had the inclusion of an incarcerated survivor who's an immigrant. It had a trans youth, non-binary youth, and it had a factory worker. And so like we were telling very different stories with the comic book. or at least we were telling our stories in the comic book, not very different stories.
Awesome, thank you. So that gives you a lot of context. So I'm going to take, this is a copy of this file, and I'm just going to show a couple of things on it. First, as I mentioned, this was originally from this template right here. As you can see, if I click on it, it's going to create a new version. And it's obviously very different colors. And so in Canva, you can often go in and you can change these colors around. So it looks like, yeah, this is one large graphic here. And if you click on it, it gives you these colors up here, and you can choose those colors and you can change them as you like, and it's going to change the background. So that's what Eva did. Here is they shifted this background image to the FCASV colors, changed everything over. You can also, on the graphic, you can oftentimes, you can change, like if you see I click on this, this has 5 colors, and you can go in and you can change those colors around, you know, and possibly like achieve an effect that you're going for. Though sometimes like changing one thing, like changing the white of the skin also changes the blouse. So you've got to kind of make adjustments. You can also, down the side here, you have the option of completely deleting or removing or replacing that element. So I'm going to go in here and just say, do a quick search for what I'm looking for within the elements pad. And this is going to give me a whole bunch of different options for what we can do here. And you can look at, up at the top, it lets you toggle between whether you want to just see graphics, which are these like clip art, like kind of the new age of clip art, whether you want photos, whether you want videos, or even audio clips. So I'm going to go in and look at graphics and be like, okay, like what's a graphic that I can change out? And it's going to give me a whole bunch. Some of them are editable to different degrees. Some of them are not. And oftentimes you have to click on them and load them in and then see. So like, for instance, this is one right here. So like if we wanted to use something like this instead, for more diverse, you know, for a more diverse representation, but we might want to go in and, you know, make the colors a little bit more like bold or pop, or fit the rest of the design. You know, but that's a possibility there. You could also, and so as you can see, there's tons of these, and you can load in different ones. Be like, no, actually, I don't like that one. Well, maybe this one. No, I don't like that one. And you can kind of mess around, pull things in. You can also bring in outside files. And you could do that simply by like opening up your browser window, grabbing a file that you want, like here's a random image in my downloads folder, and it's going to load it in here after a second. So you can pull up images, you can pull in graphics that you find online, you can drop in your logo, you can do all kinds of things like that. So you have the option, like if you have a graphic already you want to use, like Eva did with the comic book, they were able to pull in those graphics of those individual pages like that and then apply them where they belong. Other than on here, like the only thing that I would change about the graphic otherwise, and this is the way the template is, in my opinion, this was a little like, to me, this looks a little bit better having it fill the bubble a little bit more. That's like an aesthetic thing, but that is one thing I would maybe change. And this is also in the original, but this yellow on white is hard to read. And I would probably try to find a different color, or somehow like make it something that is a little bit more readable. the yellow. But otherwise, I would be pretty good about it. This also has another thing in here that I want to give that I want to show as an example. So the FCASV logo is on the bottom, and this is probably a JPEG, so it's got this white background. Whenever you import an image or you're using images from Canva, you can edit the image up here, and there are a whole bunch of filters options. Like when you first log in, you won't see any preloaded, but you'll see this like long list, and you can click on one and it'll tell you what it is. And if you click use, it'll add it to your account. One of the most common ones is there are two that we're going to use here. One is background remover. Background remover is very much like techie wizardry that, like, if you click, we'll go through and look at an image and we'll try to remove the background. Then for a logo, it's going to remove the white or whatever's behind it. And it's going to also for pictures of images and things like that. Like if you have a picture of a person, you can load them in, and then it will remove the background. And it does a pretty smart job. There is an erase and restore option where you can go through and, click on it and tweak it, like re-add back in background or remove extra background. To kind of adjust, but it usually does a pretty good job if you have a photo that already has an obvious background. So I'm going to do that. So that's remove the background. So in some cases, this might be fine. Like if this blue was a white, that logo would look great. But it's blue, so you're seeing some stuff washed out. There is a trick to actually make this logo monochrome. And it's actually by using the duotone filter. So this filter, if you load it up, it's going to give you a bunch of these options. And what it does is it basically filters a photo to only use 2 colors, and you can get some really cool effects from this. But if for what we're doing, I'm going to click on literally any of these. So I'm going to click on cherry because I'm going to edit it. And it gives you this option of what's your highlight, what's your shadow. So you can set the colors here. And I'm going to set them both to white. And what that's going to do is it's going to make the logo entirely white. This works for this logo. It doesn't work for some other logos. It depends. But if I wanted just like a watermark logo, I can do that. And so now I have the FCASV logo in white, ready to go. I will show you, actually, let me go back. So let me grab a photo and I will show you these same filters with a photo. Let's see something good. Let's do this one. So here's this filter. So let's say I want to use this. This is kind of a silly example, but I can go in here. I'm going to use the background remover on it. And let's see how this does. That book is a little blurry, so I'm interested to see how it handles the focus on the book. For images, it chugs away for a second. So while it's doing that, let's see what's going on in the chat. Yes, Eva's reminding me to talk about image rights, which is really important. If you're grabbing images off of Google, if you're grabbing images off of other places, there are questions about whether or not you have the right to use those, how you have the right to use those. Within Google image search, there is some things where you can set licensing, so you can do Creative Commons or public domain photos. That's one of the nice things about Canva, is Canva, if you have the pro account, gives you all of these stock photos for free. If you're using a free version of Canva, you can still access these photos, but they'll have watermarks over them. So truthfully, Canva is worth it for, like, Canva Pro is worth it for the stock images and nothing else. If you're using images, like usually if you're going out and you're Googling images, what you're doing is you're like looking for like partner logos or other basic stuff like that. Really you don't want to be just like Google image searching for what you want and then trying to use it, because you probably don't have the rights to. Let's see what else. Eva, yes, the contrast is an ADA thing. Lighter backgrounds with darker text. And yeah, this is a graphic here, but if you're printing, you want to take into account how you're printing this. You know, if you have a full color background for something that you need to print out as a flyer, that's going to use a ton of ink. So with print, it's often great to do like a print friendly version that has like a white background. So going back to this has actually done a really good job at pulling out the background. This is not the best photo to use because it kind of crops out the top of her head. So keep that in mind if you're planning on using a photo design like this. But now what I'm going to do to it is I want to show you what the duotone looks like. And I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to, you can do some like really, if you do some really intense contrasting colors, you can get really cool effects with this filter. So like I can do green, and I can do the yellow. And you can, you can play around like that. Green is a little too light, so darker green. So you can make some really cool stuff with this. Create some really neat designs with like duotone photos and things like that. If that's something that you like. I'm going to delete that now. So I've overhauled this design. Like the stock photo is, I don't know, like this doesn't quite match design wise with that, which again, that it depends on how like picky you want to be. But here's some minor changes that were made to this, but generally this was solid. The only thing that like popped out at me was like that logo in the box, which you see a lot. I also think like there's not a lot on this, but another thing to consider is alignment. When I see a design that looks bad, 9 times out that was done by somebody without a lot of like background in design, 9 times out of 10, it's all about alignment. And with this is not a terribly like alignment heavy design because it's designed to be a little bit chaotic. But when you see paragraphs of texts, lists, titles and things like that, and things aren't lined up, that often really looks messy. Even if people don't realize why it looks messy, that's often what they're seeing. So some of the stuff we could do here is we could look into lining up some of these elements, like, and you can do this by eye. So the edge of the cloud roughly comes to where the logo is. Okay, fun tip, if you click on something, you can go up here and you can lock it, and then it won't you won't grab it by accident when you're trying to grab other elements. So the other thing we might do is might line this up here, and I might make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, but there aren't very many elements here, and alignment can also be centered. So it's possible that like this was originally lined up to be centered. And you could even line that up. So that's kind of better over in the left-hand corner. There are no 100% right answers. Design is definitely about learning rules and then knowing how to break them. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions, comments, insights, or anything like that? If you do, go ahead and dump them in the chat. You also all are free to come off mute and ask questions verbally if you like to. What I think I'm going to show y'all is I'm going to go next. I'm going to delete that. Is going back to templates. So Canva has lots and lots of templates, and they have and there's some different ways you can search for them. Like this was an example of like, I wanted a comic book themed thing, so I'm going to look at comic books. Maybe you have something that is themed, but if you don't have something that's themed, you can also search by like what it is. So like, for instance, I'm going to search for like an event flyer. And this is what pulls up. There's 11,000 event flyers. Yes, absolutely. You know, so this is a whole bunch of flyers that you can then go and start looking through them. Some of them are very obviously themed. Some of them are more general. You know, you can also look, they offer some themes over here. So there are some pre-canned things. So you have styles, modern, minimalist, happy, simple, you know, illustration, and you can like select some of these, and it's gonna give you, it's gonna adjust to what you're looking for. And you're looking at theme, but you're also looking at layout of information. So do you have a flyer that do you have a very minimal amount of information, like with the comic book graphic, the comic graphic, you have a title, a date, and that's about it, maybe a link. Or do you have something where you have a list of stuff or a paragraph or anything like that? Like knowing what needs to be on your flyer or what needs to be on your graphic when you're looking for templates is going to help you out quite a bit. So like, for instance, maybe something like this food drive one might work. Not because what you're doing is necessarily a food drive, but if you look at it, there's a lot of spots for information on it. So maybe it's a matter of going in here and deleting this graphic and replacing the graphic, you know, and then reusing this and then using this information. So like, the best way, if you're trying to do things quickly, if you're trying to work with what's already there, is to find a template that not necessarily meets your theme, but like has the information structure that you need. Okay. So like a denim day theme. Okay. So let's see. So let's start at the beginning. When I look for denim, what do I find? I find a bunch of fake ads for denim, which might work depending on what you need. You know, some of these are, again, this is actually kind of a good example because this gives you a bunch of mostly like model looking stock photos, which is something you might generally want to avoid. Like you're not trying to sell fashion, you're trying to get people to get involved with something. But then there's also some of these that don't necessarily have people in them. This is actually that picture with the hands is kind of cool and maybe functional, but it also depends on what you want to do. There's also ones in here that have that are just like the denim fabric background, which might work for what you're doing. I wonder if you can always check, you can always start off really specific. Like, are there denim day ads, ones that already denim 4 days? Nope, not quite what we're looking for. But like, it's always worth looking. Like there might be like denim day, you know, is a thing that exists. It's out there. So some people might be, there might be stuff that exists for it, there might not be. For denim day, I've had a lot of success using graphics of cartoon people in denim over photos of real people. Yeah, like that's that's also what a lot of people do. They tend towards some of these graphics where you can where, you know, you're kind of disconnecting. Like here's a perfect example, like some of these graphics where the proportions are already accentuated in a very cartoony way. So you're already kind of removing them from any like specific body type. Like this is an example here. Like, is this person, like, what is this person's build? Like, can you really determine it based off of that? Like, what is style? What is build? But like you could take something like this and look at it and be like, okay, what do we want to change? Like, first off, I'm noticing that like some graphics give you the options to change colors, some don't. This one does not. So maybe I'm stuck. If I'm going to use this guy, I'm stuck with this color scheme. But maybe what I can do is I can go in here and I can do photos, and I'm actually going to get, you know, if I just search photos for denim, I get all of these. A lot of what comes up at the top is these graphics. So I'm actually going to dump this in here and replace the background. And then I'm going to select these elements and maybe change the color. I'm actually going to want to get the color in this guy's shirt, maybe. Yeah. So not letting. Yeah. So there's that. So I'm started building a design. So that's a little hard to see there. So let me set this back to like this darker blue. You know, so this is just like a quick example of how to like modify a design. I don't know, do I like that? Do I not? I don't know if the denim background color quite works with the graphics, but also like how picky do you need to be and how much time do you have? This is also a perfect example of something that would not be a good option for printing. You would probably want to get rid of that and do a white background, and then consider doing, you know, different colors. Like something like this design would be more appropriate for printing. So you can go through and select each element.
And I mean, like, and then for Sam, another thing I've seen is you don't have to have a flyer for every single event. If you have, you know, if you're partnering with other people at your agency, another kind of like time-saving technique might be create a calendar of events, you know, and then have a single flyer that kind of encompasses all of those events. You can create, you know, flyers for every event if you want to, but if you're kind of like, you know, strapped for time, one single event, you know, with maybe like mini images representing each event or each thing that you're doing, or a consolidated theme for the entire month might give you a little bit of that flexibility to not have to create a ton of stuff. And then maybe you could even collaborate with people from your agency, you know, and share. One of the neat things about Canva, I don't know if you shared this yet, Ray, about how to collaborate on Canva with teams and stuff like that. But you can share, that's the one limit to you. I think you can have 10 people. Is that right, Ray?
If you have if you get the nonprofit professional account, yes, you are limited to 10 people. Though you can also do shared logins. Like there's an org I work with where we basically have one login for each department. And like we have 4 organizers in public affairs and they all just use the same login. We've got like 8 people in education and they just all use the same login. But yeah, for sharing, so if you're in a design and you want to share it, there is actually like downloading and everything is in the share button, but you can share. And what you can do is you can either put somebody's you know, put somebody's email address in there, and if they're in your team already, it's going to pop up. You can also put the name of the team. So if you have your professional account, you set up a team name, and you can look up that team name and share it, and then everybody within the team will see it. You can also share a link. So you can share a link that only you can access, that only your team can access, or anybody with the link. And you can set it to can view, can comment, can edit. This should look super familiar to anybody who's familiar with stuff like Google Docs and sharing Google Docs. It's like the exact same logic, like create a link. Anybody with the link can edit. Anybody with the link can comment. Anybody with the link can view. Yeah, for sure. But that's ways to share, and then you can copy that link and you can share it with me, or you can share it with whoever. You can also send somebody a template link. What's cool about a template link, so if I'm not sure if it'll do it for me if I'm already in here. Yeah, so if you send somebody a template link, it will send them something like this. And if they say use template, what it will do is it will make a copy of your design for them to edit separately. So if you want to share something with somebody that you don't want them editing your original, that's you can do a template link. And if I say use template, it's gonna create a new version of this. So this is a new version that is separate from the previous version. So yeah, so what's going on in the chat? Let me see.
It was just us talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When searching for stock photos, y'all are talking about diversity in stock photos. You know, there's a lot of like homogeny in stock photography. There's a lot of people taking pictures of the things that everybody wants. My favorite example of this is there was a Tumblr blog for a while that was called Pictures of White Women Smiling at Salads, and it was just stock photos of women smiling at a salad. And here you go, here are your, even Canva has it, here are like millions of pictures of attractive, like most, like actually the diversity of this is kind of great. Canva's actually better than most. Like the diversity of at least like ethnically and racially of people in these photos is actually awesome. But if you notice, there is still definitely like there's definitely a particular body type. Like most of these women are younger, most of them are thinner. And of course, we're combining with salads, so this is all designed to convey like conventional health. So sometimes finding photos can involve you know, having to figure out and play around with some of these terms and see what comes up and what will work for you and what doesn't. And sometimes, unfortunately, it means using like some pretty crass terminology. I've had to like overtly search for things like fat women and things like that to find body diversity, and like and like then work through like, and then again, like a lot of it becomes, and yeah, it's content warning, body image kind of stuff. But if you look at this, like even searching that, like a lot of these are fitness photos, a lot of these are people like grabbing belly fat, like, and things like that. So you have to kind of struggle through that, like, you know, like a woman like deciding over cake or a salad. Like there's definitely like a lot of bullshit in here, for lack of a better term. And even Canva, who definitely has a little bit better, like you do still have to look through like a lot of photos to try to like find, you know, what works. there are some resources in the kit, in the toolkit. I will provide some resources for, there are a few nonprofits that have put together sets of like gender affirming, queer positive, body positive stock photography. And I'm trying to remember, and a lot of them are nonprofit use only, so that it would be available to y'all. I'm trying to remember. I'm not remembering the name of the project across on the top of my head. If anybody knows anything like that and wants to share, you're welcome to in the chat. But I will dig it up. I don't want to start just Googling live and find the wrong thing. But there's a couple projects out there that are all about inclusive stock photo, and some of them are free and some of them are inexpensive. And truthfully, if you're going to put a little bit of a budget towards anything, like supporting photographers who are pushing back, who are like advocating for body positivity, is definitely a good source of funds, a good use of funds if you have them available. Yeah, what other stuff do we have? I guess, what do we got? Pexels has some free stuff. It's not awesome, but I have found some. Yeah, I will find them. There are a few that I have found that are like limited collections, but have been made available for free, that are like very like body positive and gender affirming and things like that. So I will have to find those and pick and do those. I think, unless, does anybody have any particular questions or any things that want to be brought up? We have about 7 minutes left in this first session, and then we'll have a half an hour break, and then we'll do it all again. It'll probably be some repeat and some new stuff. But if not, I want to talk a little bit about doing designs that use a lot of that have a lot of content. And this is an example.
I had a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know, this is just something I kind of assumed or thought, but are our designs used by Canva, like do they go out to the larger like Canva community as these templates, or is there some sort of like more editorial decisions on Canva's part on what goes into that search?
I think they have people actively making templates.
Okay.
I don't think, none of your designs will be created as templates. None of yeah, it's everything is private. I think I'm sure Canva tracks what you're using and how you're using it and what you're searching for. I think that's why their stock photography is a little bit better, because they, I think, are collecting more of that information. Like, they know not just what is searched for, what is downloaded, but what is ultimately used and exported. And I think they like put all of that into like cloud algorithm stuff, and use that to inform like what shows up. So oftentimes, like, I found that using them compared to like using their stock photo lookup compared to using like something like Adobe stock or any of these other stock photos, like they seem to get better results for what I'm looking for and understand more complex ideas. So I think they are like algorithmically watching what you're doing, but they are not taking your designs and putting them out there. They have people making templates specifically to make templates.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was wondering, because I mean, personally, I don't mind if that's what they're doing, but there's definitely certainly a privacy concern for some. But I was wondering, like, our participation as DV and SV folks in this, does it improve Canva's ability to serve our purposes? That's what I feel like it does. Like you mentioned, I feel like that's happening on the back end.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like when you search sexual assault awareness
Yeah,
month,
this is disappointing. I don't know if any of you saw
exactly.
this,
So I
but,
feel
like,
like if more of us were utilizing Canva to create SAM stuff, we, in a year or so, there would be a lot more content to reflect that. Hopefully that's,
yeah,
if
I'm
it is like
hoping,
an intentional decision on their part, they make that decision to make sure that that's more available.
Mhm. Absolutely, and I'm curious now, if making templates for Canva is something that like people can do and submit, if that's like, I don't know anything about that, but it's obvious these are made as templates. Like some of the superhero stuff was obviously like this world superhero, like this is obviously like a template, with filler information. Some of them are like partially blank or just very basic, but this is somebody like, these are definitely are definitely built to be templates, and not like, because they don't have address, like the event flyers like have fake addresses or don't have addresses, or it just says like something like World Literacy Day, or like what is Smart Woman, like that's like what is amazing superheroes. So these are made by people that are just creating these to be used as templates. And I'm curious what I'm curious what I'm going to look that up on the break and see what I find out about like what the template making process is, because if you're somebody who has the skill and wants to do that, then that makes sense, because like you said, there is nothing for Sam on here, and I'm not even sure like the two come up when you search for sexual assault. One is like the Me Too movement, and the other one looks like a trifold brochure kind of a thing. Oh, Eva's on it. Okay, what's Eva saying? You can search for ovarian cancer, for teal. Okay, so there's some here. But again, it's definitely not going to be on like as much on theme, but like some of these can definitely be like tweaked or used as starting points. And okay, yeah, Eva went and did the research. Apparently you can sell your designs, and they've shared a link to being a contributor. So there are people creating these designs and putting them out there and getting them put into Canva. So that's pretty cool. And you can even search, like you can search colors and things like that, and get like, if you're looking for a specific set of colors, like you can find like teal, and you're going to find teal designs, and find some templates like this could possibly be like this could be something that would definitely be usable if like you need it, like it's suicide prevention, but you could use that. This one, this is Earth Day, but this is still a pretty generic looking design. Some of these ones with clouds, things like that. Not that one, not him. But so you can see, like you can look into you can look by color, you can look by all kinds of themes, and then of course there's these predetermined styles down here, so you can also pull up themes. And some folks were talking about we're over right now, so I'm going to say this one last thing. We were talking some in previous workshops about being able to create content that is more welcoming than that differentiates your organization from, say, like the police or like the district attorney's office or things like that. And one of the things I recommended was to use more informal design. And one way to do that is specifically I found is to go in and look at education stuff that's made for education material, because it's like not a complete mess, like it's still pretty well formatted design. Like, and you're looking right here. So this is teal filtered by education. Some of the stuff is like younger kids stuff, but a lot of this stuff is useful design stuff for like it's not, it doesn't look overly institutional, it doesn't look overly formal or corporate, and could be used for making things that make people feel like more able to access your resources without feeling like you're like an extension of like the police department or other like, you know, state apparatuses that they feel are threatening to them. So yeah, I'll leave it with that. One of the things I will talk about next hour is how to take some of these templates and change them to sizes for different uses. So like if you find something that's like, oh, this is perfect, but it's entirely the wrong size, that's something I haven't covered yet. So
Yeah,
do
and
that
then,
next.
yeah, and just in case you're not joining us or not able to join us for the next one, this is something that Ray covered in some of the workshops that they did earlier, but this can be something that can serve as a deliverable for a number of grants. And so talk to your leadership, you know, if there are ideas that you have, and you know, that's a conversation. Sometimes they, you know, they might replicate the same thing that they've always done because they need to get it out. And, you know, like when we're applying for grants and stuff, we're not always thinking, but I really wish that they were involving you all from the get-go in some of these conversations, because if what you need is more time to design a couple templates that then you can, you know, you can use and you can kind of get feedback from community, and maybe it increases your numbers, maybe it increases the number amount, like amounts of people who are interacting with your content on social media. Those are still numbers that we can look at for impact. And so, you know, definitely discuss with folks if you have ideas, you know, whether it be like a podcast, you know, or that's the type of communication, or designing a few new things for your agency around Denim Day, and, you know, so just some food for thought.
Mhm.
So hopefully, if we don't see you, just remember you can reach out to us. Ray, you want to include your email address in the chat before we end this, and I'll include mine as well. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
For sure.
All right. And definitely look out for our upcoming communications toolkit, which will release sometime this quarter.
Mhm.